Welcome back to Odd Socks. So it's a gloriously, extremely hot day today, but we've had an awful lot of rain over the space of 48 hours. We had a lot of storms hit us with quite a lot of rain. Not quite as much as some areas, but we did have quite a bit. This has really helped the allotment grow. So I thought I'd take you a little tour round on how we're doing so far in the second week of June. You can probably see behind me the corn that's growing down here really, really well. It's getting lovely and thick, and it's still lovely and lush. I haven't had as much pest damage on this as I thought I would do. The 2 courgettes are also quite happy down here as well, as the Jerusalem artichokes, quite happily growing away there. I've also managed to clear an actual bed, so I've actually got some space to actually do some planting. I have got a lot of plants I've still got to get into the ground. But one of the good things is at the moment that we've been focusing on this last few days is our compost bays. So one of the compost bays that we turned our compost into over a month ago is actually turning really, really well. And then the other bay, which is on the end, we've stopped adding to that particular pile now to let that rot down so we can actually turn it back into the middle bay, layering it on top of what's already there, and then it will be left there until we need it. Now really, it could be ready by autumn when we actually need it, but it might actually be even spring next year before it's actually ready. Our compost systems in general doesn't take more than a year, and that's with a bad year of composting. We're normally done in between 6 and 10 months, give or take. So we're really hoping that we can gather enough before the end of winter so we can create the new beds, top up the no-dig beds, and create a few large pots with our actual own compost. Because these are now either resting or full, we have a couple of other bays. Now these bays are for the excess in general, but we've managed to almost fill this one bay up here with our grass clippings, hedge clippings, brown material, anything that we've been able to actually scavenge. And this is 2/3 full at the moment. We will continuously fill this bay until it sinks no more. And then depending on how much room's in the middle one, when we go to turn it, it will either be turned into the middle or it will be turned into the left. Either way, we just turn it the once, and that's into its final place in general. And we normally just put all the semi-ready compost all in the one pile. So we kind of have an alternate system going on. So fingers crossed, we'll actually have a good season for compost. I want to focus next year on our compost, using it more for our seedlings with a mixture of other soils and composition. So we're not relying so heavily off bought compost. Our strawberries, we've actually netted because I was actually having problems with birds eating the strawberries. So I've allowed them to have some, and the rest are now definitely ours. I did mulch them about a month or so ago with some straw underneath to try and keep them off the ground a little bit. And it had been working, but with all the torrential rain that we've had over the last 48 hours, it's actually made it quite moist and sodden. So we'll see how well it works going forward. One of the nice things at the moment is our broad beans are actually starting to become ready. Now we did have an awful lot of black fly, so I'm not expecting a fantastic harvest, but they're a good size. Now they could do with swelling a little bit more, but you know what? I actually prefer to have my broad beans a little bit younger. And when you pop them open, you get a beautiful bean. They are unbelievably sweet and juicy and nice when they're first out the pod. But I think I'm going to harvest some of these today because I don't want them going too chewy. And I think I've got a couple of recipes I can actually try with this. Now my beautiful pea plants are doing extremely well, but they're starting to look a bit sorry for themselves. Now they've had plenty of water and they are just starting to actually fill out their pods. So I reckon within another week, maximum 2 weeks, I'll be harvesting these peas. Now I could eat them literally straight off the plant and eat them like a mange too. Which is so good. But we already have mange two plants. I'm going to let these develop a little bit further. Now the broad beans that I've got here, they're doing okay, but again they've been munched really hard by black fly. Now we tried the garlic water, we tried soapy water, we tried hosing them off with the hose pipe, but they just keep coming back. Now we've noticed that it's more this actual side that's actually been affected with the black fly. The ones a little bit further over are actually developing nice long big pods. So at least we'll get some crop. Now these ones, they've been so damaged by the black fly that they may survive, but they may not grow to their full potential. But we'll still get a really good crop off of these. And then they'll get pulled up, go onto the compost bay, and then I'll have to figure out something else to go into these beds after. That's where the excitement is. Literally replanting something after you've harvested a crop. So as you can see from my potting table, I've got a load of seeds that have actually already been sown. Now these are from beets to radishes to fennel, pak choi, more basils, a whole manner of different things. Now I'm redoing some pak choi, but my main focus is going to be from July on the pak choi. By then it will start getting cooler by the time it's germinated, and hopefully I'll get a little bit better crop than just eating the flowers and the stems, which in itself is tasty, but I actually want the whole pak choi. I've also got a ton of plants I need to put out. Now it's quite easy to become really overwhelmed really quickly when it comes to sowing, planting, trying to get your timings right and everything else. But literally just little and often, even if you can only replant things once a week, just do it that way. And just, it doesn't, once you've got them in your seed trays, it doesn't actually take long to transfer them into the ground. It's just finding that space. But it won't be long before you're harvesting a lot of the crops that you've already planted. And this will give you some amazing space to replant again. Now, my little greenhouse, I haven't overfilled it like I was going to. I have got some chili peppers in here, some emmer, and some baby watermelons too. Now the baby watermelons are still quite small, but they're actually growing, so I'm happy with that. And the last few days, the emmer is really starting to take hold. Now they're not as advanced as some of the ones that you see that people post on forums and things like that, but they're strong and hopefully they'll produce a good amount of fruit. Now it's the first time I've grown melons, so I'll be interested to see if I can actually get a really good tasting melon. But this soil dries out extremely quick, and then come autumn, I'm actually going to add in a lot of our own compost mixture to really top up the beds, hoping that this actually helps through the next growing season. Now, interestingly enough, my Cape gooseberries have actually started to shoot up since putting them in the pots and grow bags. They're still not massive, but I have noticed there is a few flowers. Now these can grow up to 2 meters in height, so I know they're nowhere near the size that they need to be. But even if I fail with these this year, I'm going to try them again next year. It was such a slow germination rate and such an extremely slow beginning start of the year. They don't like frost, they don't like the cold. So we really struggled to grow them to a decent size at home and not bring them down to the greenhouse. But I'm glad they finally started to take off. My gherkins that I placed inside the old crates, they've really started shooting up. And to be honest, I thought I'd lose a few more, but I haven't. which means I'm going to have an awful lot of gherkins to pickle. But that's all right. I absolutely adore a pickled gherkin, and I'll water bath them this time so I can eat them and enjoy the jars for much longer. The kales and the brassicas and all that kind of stuff has just literally burst forth. The extra little bit of heat that we've had over the last week or two, the good amount of rain and the good amount of watering we've been doing has really pushed them on. Now, I never count my chickens before they hatch when it comes to growing fruits and veggies, because they can be completely wiped out in one night. We've had it happen this year. But I'm really hopeful for all my brassicas. And I'm really looking forward to having some of this kale. Now, there's some of it that I can actually pick and eat now. I can start taking some of the outer leaves, especially some of the curly green kale, and maybe even some of the blue. Now, we've had a hit and miss when it comes to our squashes. Now, I've lost one, which actually, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that many considering how many we've actually planted. We're growing 5 or 6 different varieties this year, and we've got them in 5 or so areas. And we've only lost, well, we lost the one, and I thought we were going to lose another one. We came down yesterday and it was completely flat, not dried out or anything, just completely flat against the black plastic that we're growing it through. But today, it's actually perked up a little bit. Now, I think it's some disturbance in the roots. We have an awful lot of ants' nests. When I did check and put my hand down the root ball, there was an awful lot of ants down there. I mean, a lot. So I think we've had it before this year, actually, where the ants have made their homes near the root system, and all that rummaging around and messing around near the root ball has actually made the plant really weak or sulk or even die. Again, it's not direct eating of the plant, it's all the building and the digging around the roots. But again, with this nice, lovely warm weather and finally much warmer nights, the squashes are really starting to take off. And that's the same as my courgette plants. And my runner beans have grown so much in the last 3 or 4 days, literally a couple of feet tall now, within the last 2 or 3 days. So obviously the weather beforehand has just been, well, it's been pants. The night times was still really cold. It had really affected our tomato plants, stunted them quite a lot. They're still growing, they're still healthy, they're still strong. Their stems are so thick this year, but they're just not very tall. Well, not the ones outside anyway. And the ones that are actually in the bed are even worse than the ones in the pots and the grow bag. But that's the thing, you never know what kind of season you're going to get. Just because you did it a certain way the year before or the year before that doesn't mean it's actually going to work for you this year. But we'll still get a really good crop off of them, and they'll still keep growing loads. They're just a lot slower this year. Some of our lettuces that we grew in manure. Now, at first they were quite sickly and yellow and didn't seem to be doing very well at all. And the ones in the manure pile was really damaged by slugs. But now they are humongous, and I really need to harvest them. Now, we oversowed our lettuces all over because, one, they're a really cheap seed. They're really easy to germinate and propagate, and you can fit them in all over the place. And we used them a lot as sacrificial planting, with the hopes of being able to get as much lettuce as we could. Well, we've got a lot of lettuce. So I need to come back this evening when it's a lot cooler and harvest a lot of the leaves, making sure we eat lots of lettuce over the next few days at least. Now, our greenhouse, it's extremely hot in here at the moment. It's actually 45 degrees, and that's with the door open and the window open. It's just extremely hot, probably way too hot in here. But as you can see, everything is just growing crazy in here this year. This is the best we've ever had, our homegrown chillies. They've really took on, even though we brought them out probably far too soon in the season. But wow, and they've already started developing fruit. A lot of them have flowered, and I can actually start seeing the little fruits developing. The basil's getting monstrous too. That really does need to be cut. And all the different varieties of tomato all actually seem to be doing quite well, and we've even started getting tomatoes on the vine. But again, some of them are a lot smaller than what we're actually used to. But the stems are so much thicker this year. So whether they carry on growing upwards, which they will do, but at the moment, harvesting tomatoes off such short plants is something that we've not normally done. But we're still going to get a really good crop off these. So that's that for today. It's like literally a flying tour of what's going on the plot at the moment. I have got some plans and some goals that I want to achieve this week, but I don't do very well in the really hot weather. And it's been so humid and sticky up to the midweek this week that, well, I haven't been able to get out here and do much, not without being extremely grumpy. But I did manage to plant up some of my herbs, which I've actually held on to for far too long. So they're now into a nice big pot. And I managed to find an absolutely beautiful strawberry mint plant. And the taste is, oh, it's so good. It's just like a polar mint. So I can't wait to try that in some of my drinks. But there will be more videos released through this week. I think I'll do some harvest and cooking videos. If you're interested and want to keep up with what's growing on our allotment, like and subscribe. This will really help our channel, but it will also help you keep updated with any new videos or information that we like to pass along.